My Body, My Choice is a popular rallying cry among people on the left who claim to care about women, empowerment, bodily autonomy, self-ownership, and consent. And it's a great slogan, but I just think it's funny that a lot of the people who parrot it, politicians in particular, support or at least accept policies like regulating beverages on menus, taxing soft drinks, and criminalizing products popular among minority communities. They may want cannabis to be legal and taxable, but believe the government has a fundamental right to regulate the substances people put in their bodies, even if they aren't hurting anyone. They're totally fine telling me how I may and may not defend myself and my body, and currently some even believe I shouldn't have the choice to opt out of an experimental injection made by known criminal corporations with track records of fatal incompetence, or should at least be ostracized from society or shamed should I decide not to get it. This is particularly rich considering the people most at risk for severe symptoms, hospitalization, and death from COVID are overwhelmingly those with pre-existing conditions caused by lifestyle choices. Yet according to the My Body, My Choice crowd, it's my responsibility to sacrifice my own bodily autonomy to cater to choices these people have made about their bodies. But it's not just that the slogan is entirely hypocritical and contradictory, it's also sexist as fuck. It's supposed to be feminist or something to claim ownership of your body, but my body contains my mind, and with my mind I've reasoned that I morally oppose many of the policies I'm forced to fund via mandatory taxation. I don't like blowing up little kids, mass surveillance without warrants, prosecuting whistleblowers who expose heinous crimes, arming domestic police as well as oppressive regimes with military weapons, bailing out and subsidizing corrupt corporations, many of which produce death machines, enforcing gun control when the state is the worst perpetrator of gun violence, seizing lands to build border walls regardless of the party in power, indoctrinating children with subservient pro-government rule-following propaganda, waging a domestic war on terror that will inevitably lead to further radicalization as well as further restrictions of civil liberties and an expanded police state, enforcing the anti-choice, violent, and failed war on drugs, settlements for police brutality, or generous raises for self-important scumbag politicians. Despite my inherent self-ownership and ability to reason and draw conclusions about government policy and its legitimacy in general, the left still insists I have no choice but to fund policies I disagree with. Obviously, people and politicians on the right also demand I pay for policies and programs that violate my morals, but they aren't exactly parading around as saviors for women. If you refuse to submit to this paradigm and their ideology, they'll gaslight you and say it's your own fault for not submitting to the system, for not electing people from a narrow range of options to rule over you and steal your income, like they just did with Joe and Kamala and the rest of the Democrats after spending 4 years grandstanding about not consenting to those in power and demanding their refusals be respected. Fast forward to their establishment politicians gaining the upper hand. Well, you had a choice and you didn't make it, they'll say, so you deserve whatever rulers you get. But I don't even consent to the system itself, let alone the authoritarian options they select for me to choose from. I don't consent to a violent government propped up by violent gun-toting enforcers and power-hungry politicians and bureaucrats who never asked me or anybody else if I wanted their rule or services. To summarize, the very same people who scream my body, my choice often refuse to acknowledge or recognize my individual consciousness and sovereignty and refusal to consent to a coercive, violent system that expects me to pay for things I don't want and morally oppose and will assert the right to brutalize me for non-compliance because every single law is backed up with a threat of force, however compassionate, wise, and necessary its supporters may think it is. They're ultimately saying the only thing I truly own and have consent, choice, and authority over is my pussy, misogynistically reducing me to reproductive organs. They disregard and disrespect my consciousness and values and tell me it's for my own good, but it's incredibly paternalistic to insist and demand that the only place I really have authority when it comes to government control is my pussy. But you can vote, they'll say. But this is in no way an actual choice when no matter what, whether I vote for a ruling class puppet or megalomaniac or not, I'm forced to comply and fund oppression. It would be a lot more principled to stop objectifying women and stop enslaving all humans, employing majority mob rule to make choices for them and restricting their freedoms, and calling it democracy and representation. But what do I know? I'm just a silly woman. I can really only be trusted to make decisions about my pussy. I need ruling class tyrants to make the rest of my decisions for me.